I always feel like Tony has your back. She's like, yeah. I'm like, you always feel like you can count on him no matter what? She's like, yes. I'm like, I feel like that about David. She's like, well, yeah, you should. And she goes, oh, you didn't feel like that with that. I just, I didn't know.
Christine Brown Woolley. She now goes by Christine Woolley. She is the wife of David Woolley. She is the survivor of Kody Brown. She is a survivor of a polygamous cult, and she is now unraveling, unpacking, and going through all the what did I do with my life for the first 50 plus years, and what does this mean for my future? And like many women that leave polygamy, it's this roller coaster of unraveling everything they went through, experiencing new ways of life, putting the pieces together, connecting the dots that wait. This is what I was told. This is what I thought was normal. And this is how it's not normal. Do you remember how on the series they used to act like polygamy and monogamy was normal? Well, Christine's now sort of unraveling that and realizing it's not the same, not even remotely the same. And some of the issues at hand that she's beginning to learn about are the trust that she has with David, the ability to lean on someone and be able to have unconditional and unwavering support. And for Christine, one of the biggest pieces of her entire adult life with Kody was that she never felt good enough. She never felt like he loved her. She never felt seen. She never felt valued. She never felt attractive. She never felt safe. She spent all of these years with a man and never felt like he had her back. And that is a miserable way for any woman to live if you are in a relationship with someone and you can't trust that your spouse.
I want every woman to feel this confident and this loved and this cared for and this secure. Because I know what it's like to not feel like this. And it's terrible.
Your partner doesn't have your best interests in mind, isn't thinking about what you need or what you want. And it's an interesting, I guess, contrast to Kody, now trying to act like he was alienated from his kids by the wife, which isn't true, and then also admitting he had next to no relationship with his kids while he was raising them, which is funny because for how many years did they say Kody is a great dad? He's always around. He's the most amazing father ever. But something that they haven't talked about is the intimacy. It was always this like elephant in the room where you know that he was having sex with all of the women, you know. That 'cause he had kids with all of them, but they refused to kiss each other or hold hands or show any affection towards Kody when they were around their other sister wives. And what I think is weird about that is that they had this rule and then they went on to a public show and made a series where Kody had scenes with each one of his wives that were private where he was showing affection to those women. So Kody, even though they had these rules, was then on camera showing affection, which then the women would watch. So they didn't really follow those rules. So it's like, oh, well, you didn't do it in front of me, but now I can see it on television show. I think the fact that they finally got a window into the marriages and the lives that were happening, where Kody with Kody when he wasn't at their house, was a huge wake-up call for them. I know that the exposure to the real world is a part of it, but I think if you've spent a lot of your life isolated and you're siloed and your relationships are not allowed to be public, so Christine and Kody's relationship was behind closed doors. Janelle and Kody's was as well. Meri and Kody's too. And so all of them, no one really knows. The other women didn't have a lot of understanding about what was going on, their relationships. And then with the show, they got a front seat view to it. And I don't know how you could look at Kody and Robin's relationship and think, oh, that's, just like mine, right? But something that I'm sure caused issues was that I'm sure contributed to the jealousy. But also, maybe it started making them think about the intimacy more. Maybe it started making them think about, I now am seeing him kiss his wives before I never did. I'm now seeing how he coos and Googles over this woman, and he doesn't do that to me. I'm now seeing that what I'm dealing with isn't what he does with others. And while they keep saying, you're not supposed to compare, how can you not? If he is over the moon with one, and not with the other. It's obvious. So when they start seeing the intimacy on the show, I'm sure that was a factor. But Christine, for the first time, literally acknowledges that she can't believe she was in a relationship with a man and was okay with him having sex with other women for so many years. They tried to make it seem like it was normal and that, it was just another part of way of living. But it was very obvious that there was a lack of intimacy in the relationships. There was a lack of connection. There was a lack of anyone really knowing each other because everything was kept on a very high level. There was the times when I would watch the show and I would think these people know nothing about each other. And if they do, they're doing a really good job of hiding it, and they rarely, if ever, wanted to have conversations where they had to get vulnerable about what they were feeling or thinking. And Christine would often say she hated having to talk about her feelings, and she hated having to even talk about what was going on in their relationship. And when she's talking about to David, like on a Valentine's Day, he would hand them all flowers. And I don't know what he did when the cameras weren't on. I don't know what Valentine's Day were like before they had camera. But on the show, when they did Valentine's Day, it was very awkward. He would get a bunch of bouquets. He would bring them to the house. He would give them in front of the others to each other. And he would give them kisses and say, "Happy Valentine's Day." And for her to say, "I can't believe I was okay with it. I can't believe I was actually okay with being with a man that kissed other women, that had intimate relationships with other women, and I was just okay with it. Like, I can't believe I was okay with it." And I think the further away she'll get from it, she'll probably get to a point where she will say, "I wasn't okay with it," because in the same breath she says, "I can't believe I was okay with it." But then next she says, "But I was okay with it because everything was with the culture, and this is what we were supposed to be okay with." But if that's the truth, if you were okay with it, then having him kiss other women in front of you wouldn't have been a big issue, right? But she talks about how, she didn't get jealous until Robin came along, and then it was a problem for her. I do think that for Christine, she was able to live in that honeymoon phase at least longer than the other wives like Meri and Janelle, because Meri and Janelle, Mary's marriage was very short. Before Janelle came in, and then it was not much longer after that Christine came in. And I don't think that Kody and Janelle's relationship ever really got a chance to be established, because I think once Christine came in, he was able to give a lot of his affection and time to Christine. And because she was the third wife and the newest wife, she would have been, for all intents and purposes, the one that was the quote-unquote favorite, even though Meri was the first wife and the head wife, and he had the legal marriage with her. The fact that he didn't add anyone for so long with Christine, and the one where, she felt like everything was fine until he got Robin, tells me that she and Kody had somewhat of a decent relationship they had to have, or she wouldn't have stayed and she wouldn't have said she wasn't jealous. I can't believe there wasn't jealousy before Robin. I think the difference with Robin entered the family once Christine was done having kids, and that was a moment for Christine where she knew that she was being replaced because the women were for babies. That was their purpose. And once they stop having kids, they don't have a purpose. And that's why Kody didn't care to nurture or have relationships with the wives that weren't giving them babies, because their only purpose was to honor and create babies for his kingdom. Every time a new wife comes in, that can breed children that becomes the woman that's the focus. And Robin was 10 years younger than all of them and was able to give him at least 2 children. I'm surprised she didn't give him more. But either way, I think it wasn't just that she wasn't jealous until Robin came in. I think it was she knew that she was being replaced, and as long as she was not replaced, and she was the last wife and the favorite wife, it was okay. So I think it's like, you're okay with it until it happens to you. So it already had happened to Janelle. It had already happened to Meri, and they weren't okay with it. I don't think they were ever okay with it ever. I don't think any of them were ever okay with it, because if they were ever okay with it, they would have been able to kiss each other and kiss Kody. I guess kiss Kody would be able to kiss his wives in front of the other women. They would have been okay with it. If you have to hide the affection with the other women because you're gonna see him kiss someone that's not you, you're not okay with it. It's your subconscious like screaming at you saying, I'm not okay with this. This isn't okay. And she'll get there. She'll recognize that down the line. But I'm glad to hear her say, I can't believe I was ever okay with that. I can't believe I ever was with someone that slept with other women. Go, Christine. Go, Christine. I'm not a fan of the men that are in polygamy. I have to be honest. I'm not a fan of the arrogant men that choose to be horrible, but I will say that there are men that are in this culture that do it for faith, and they do it because they believe in God. And there are men that go into this believing this dogma that's false, and they live it because they believe they have to, and they are victims as much as the women, although they have a lot more power than the women, and they are the perpetrators of horrific abuse, quite frequently, of the women and the lifestyle itself and the religion that surrounds it. It's an abusive dogma, in my opinion, in that what it expects of all people, the expectations it places on men and on women. And there are men that come out that become more actualized and realized about their role in everything. But the problem with Kody is that even though he's coming out of it and he thinks that, he has all these justifications for why he's done what he's done. He lacks foresight, and he lacks the maturity, the empathy, or really the just compassion for the people in his lives that he's hurt, and his unwillingness to take responsibility for what he did, and his lack of ability to take accountability or be confronted by the pain that he caused. And the fact that he runs from it is a very huge red flag to me, that even though he's out of polygamy, he hasn't and will not change, because there are men that have left this culture that leave with deep shame and they just feel terrible for how they treated the women. They feel terrible for how the kids were raised. They feel terrible about all of it. And there are men specifically, I can think of one in particular, whose daughter I speak to, who did take accountability and took responsibility for the damage he caused. And the guilt that he has is immense. But he takes accountability for the fact that he was not a good husband and not a good father. And he doesn't view the conversations with his kids as some sort of like confrontation or an indictment on who he is, right? It's that lack of empathy and lack of remorse for Kody, and the lack of his being able to get over his ego. And even when he says that he's said things about the other women that are hateful or mean or cruel, or he's been cruel to his kids, he has an excuse. So in this episode, he said, well, I said all these things because it was my ego. I said I didn't love them. I said I didn't care about them. I said that, I only did this for religion, or I this or that. And I said these terrible things about me. I said it wasn't worth it. I said it was all trash and whatever. He says these things, but he says, but it was just because of my ego. It was only because I couldn't handle the fact that they were leaving me, and I had to say something, and I was very arrogant about it, and I can't believe I did that. But then at the same time, he's justifying. So he's not really sorry, because if you were sorry, if it was about your ego, you would acknowledge it was about your ego, and then you would do something to humble yourself and change your ego. And in the same breath that he's making these statements, he literally says that his kids and his wives worshiping him was his identity. I think what Kody fails to recognize is that he's like, I don't blame him that they're calling me a piece of trash. I was calling them a piece of trash. He's not acknowledging why they're saying that, right? He's not acknowledging what the actual critique is, why they feel the way that they did, what it was that he was doing to them that caused them pain, what it was that they were having to endure at this expense of him having his ego balloon and feeling like he was worshipped. What Kody said was that he was willing to live in a space where everyone else suffered because he was worshiped, and everyone worshiped the ground he walked on. He was willing for everyone else to suffer and to have his kids have no relationship with him. I mean, he even said he didn't have relationships with his kids because he would go to the houses and he wasn't in the houses with them. He was just there. And when he was there, the relationship was through the wives, because he's not even a part-time dad. When these polygamous men show up, they have their special cups that they get, and their special plates, and the special foods that they make It's not the way the family normally is. It's one day a week. It's not normal. And if everyone's there, like trying to praise him and just be grateful that he's there, he doesn't even have to try to be a better person, right? And so he's not acknowledging that he caused pain at the expense of his ego, was being inflated, and Kody would have been okay with everything staying the way that it did because his ego was getting ballooning and he was being war-ripped, and he only started lashing out at them when they stopped feeding his ego. And so he'll say things like, I say that. I did these things because I didn't love them, failing to recognize that in reality, he didn't leave any of the women. I mean, he abandoned them, right? He abandoned them, but all of them left him again. He's trying to claim ownership to something, and he's refusing to acknowledge his failure, which is what Janelle said. He doesn't want to acknowledge his failure. His failure is that he was not a good father. His failure was he had more children than he could manage. His failure was that he had more relationships than he could manage, and he was neglectful of his children, neglectful of his wives, neglectful of his responsibilities, abusive, controlling, demeaning, degrading, and awful. And he did all of those things because of his ego. He did all of those things because they worshiped him, and he felt entitled to do that to people. And even now, coming out of it, he feels entitled to say that, well, they just left him because he did those things. And he's saying, well, I did those things, trying to say that I didn't love them. No, Kody, you did those things because your ego made you believe that you could do whatever you wanted and there would never be consequences. That's the truth. The truth is, you did whatever you wanted. You hurt them. You abused them. You graded them. You yelled at them. You called your kids horrific names. You called them jerks. And you said you never wanted to speak to them ever again. Your child died and you didn't show up. And this is you on a television show saying, I forgive them. No, 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 no. They have nothing to be sorry for. You're still an egomaniac. So he was an absolute liar and disgusting in this episode. And Christine is disgusted that she shared him with other women, and I don't blame her. So what are your thoughts about all of this? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.